Hello, and welcome to my Tinker Time Makerspace activity. So, the objectives of my activity are that the students will utilize materials found in the makerspace and begin developing an idea for their kinetic project. So, I'm thinking that this will kind of walk them through how to use the makerspace with the challenge of creating a kinetic sculpture. So, the idea is that for their prototype and their testing, they're gonna utilize materials found in the makerspace. Depending on kind of their final result, they might need something different than they found in the makerspace. So part of their proposal, they might have to list some other materials that they may need. And then, as far as the ages, I teach high school sculpture and ceramics. So these are for ninth to 12th graders. It's going to be in the sculpture classroom, utilizing the makerspace counter that I have kind of surrounding two walls of my class. Or they can collect materials from the makerspace and then use it at their assigned seat. And then there's just a lot of materials back there. There's cardboard and paper, recycled items, dowel rods, glue guns, simple motors, lots of things to kind of get their ideas flowing. And then, on the next slide, you'll see kind of I broke apart each kind of stage of the design thinking process and some questions to kind of prompt them through their thinking. So first for the empathize, so I think what I'll do is just hop ahead to my example and how I kind of answer the questions. So for the empathize, I had to decide who the project's for and what considerations need to be made. So for my kinetic sculpture, I was making this project to be displayed, maybe hanging. The project will be in a public place. And so it needs to catch the eye of the viewers and have appealing colors. And then I saw an idea on this home design website about using recycled soda cans, aluminum cans, and making a spinner. So that's kind of where I want to experiment and test. And then as far as defining the project, so it needs to be kinetic. So that means it has to be a sculpture with movement. And I'm already kind of thinking that my sculpture is going to hang. I want it to be a wind spinner. So it doesn't need a motor, but it will need to kind of, as it's hanging, be affected by kind of movement and wind. And so it's going to need some type of access to spin. Maybe the wire will be spinny enough. And some problems that need to be solved is how can I hang it? How am I going to even create this from a can? And how will I kind of tie in that kinetic movement piece? So, as I began to kind of ideate on my idea, I am excited about this spinner idea. So, that's kind of where I wanted to go through. And I know it needs to create movement and it will have to have some kind of wind. So, as I was kind of prototyping and sketching, I was kind of trying to figure out, okay, so you'll see on my prototype, I was kind of prototyping and ideating at the same time, cutting up the cans. In the example, I could kind of see these like pieces of the can that were cut through. So at first, I cut off the top and measured out strips to cut vertically, and then I could kind of pull the strips apart. So I liked the way that was going. And then in my testing phase, you can kind of see my sketch off to the right-hand side. I knew I wanted multiple of these spinners, so I just kind of made a little time-lapse video of myself kind of starting my testing phase, figuring out how am I going to do these with the cans. I really like the strips, and then I realized that for my spinner, I was going to need 2 cans per spinner, and I wanted to hang kind of multiple of them to kind of create like a not quite a wind chime, but in that kind of um, way there. So there you can see I have the 2 cans. I'm like, how am I going to put these together? And then I started kind of experimenting with like different shapes that you can make depending on how you make your cuts in the cans. This it was a really fun process to kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to connect these? Kind of can see all the wheels turning in that. So after I kind of tested and experimented, I'm kind of settled on my ideas. Like I know I want to make 3 of these. It's going to be 2 cans each. So I need a total of 6 cans. I started to kind of poke a hole in the top and I put the wire through the can. So my kind of action picture here, you can see I was like, all right, this is going to spin. This is going to work. So my hope is that when the kids kind of finish their testing phase, they're going to kind of get into the peer sharing and they can kind of share their ideas, share their problems that they went through, and think about, you have any more ideas for me? Or maybe I just can't figure out this part of my sculpture. So I see a lot of just idea bouncing and idea sharing. And then one thing that I hadn't figured out about my sculpture yet is kind of that final surface, right? And just based on the slipperiness of the aluminum cans, I think I would have to finish it off with spray paint. So there need to be a little testing there. And then I said, what else? I want to use beads to provide a appealing finish. So I thought beads wouldn't impact the spinning and would just kind of add a decoration. So there was my artifact and my home design references, and thanks for listening.